$600,000 item. We have two choices here, three choices. We can approve it, we can disapprove it, or we can send it back to be rebid.
I understand that.
In order to make that decision, I need answers to the question that I'm asking, because in my mind, I need to make sure that I'm comfortable the value of that building is $600,000. You guys all want to go ahead and just go ahead and vote and stamp on this and potentially leave money on the table. That's up to you. But in the meantime, I want to have my opportunity to ask the questions so that I'm comfortable with this bid.
And again, the property went out for bid. The expectation of what's going to be put there has not been submitted. So we are being told what the plans might be, but the director has already made it clear he is not 100% sure.
Fine.
So we are voting on someone who went out to bid. It's the same thing if I go to an antique car show and I bid on a car and the person approves the bid, and then all of a sudden someone else says, well, wait a minute, the reserve is lifted, and now all of a sudden someone else has another crack and they can say, no, you're not good enough, you can't buy it. The whole process was done. It's $600,000 that this person bought it for, fair and square, and I have no problem with that. And what they're going to put there is the next step. It's not this step, it's the next step.
It has everything to do with the value of the property. And that's what I am asking questions for.
And the value of the property.
I want to know if you let me, I have the floor. And I want to continue asking my questions.
Well, okay? I agree you have the floor, but I want to redirect and say that the council president, who is the person that represents the ward this property is on, has also done his due diligence and feels comfortable about the bid, which therefore I feel comfortable about the bid. And I think you're going 12 steps ahead when we're merely talking about the sale of a property. Whether you feel the property value is not good enough, it was done through a legal bid process. So what they're going to do with the property is another step of the process at a time. We are talking about the purchasing the process of the due process that was done to bid on the property.
That's
Chairman,
fine.
a point of
It's
order.
apparent that you have made up your mind that you're going to vote on the 600,000. I am asking questions to help me get to a place where I'm comfortable with it. This, by the way, this isn't just a ward-specific item. This is something that affects the entire city. It affects all the taxpayers.
Agreed, but you're going on assumptions,
Can I
Councilman.
finish, Mr. Chairman?
Councilman, you're repeating yourself. You're going on
Quit
assumptions.
interrupting me. No, these are not assumptions. They're questions. They're questions of fact. They're questions of dollars and cents. That's what I'm asking. And I would appreciate it if you would give me the courtesy of not interrupting. To get the answers to my question. We could have had the answers to these questions 10 minutes ago instead of sitting here going back and forth.
And what I've made my point clear.
The value of the building. What is the taxable value of this building?
I've made my point clear. Mr. Dupuy, you can answer the question that he asked.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the question factually, the assessment is $1,069,700. However, that is assessed as an office building for a municipality. That is not the highest and best use. That is not what the property would be used for. That is not representative of the fair market value of the property. So a couple other things to consider. We don't want to be holding this building going into the winter with all the extra heating costs and what might happen to the property and, as was mentioned, to secure the building. But more importantly, we need housing. The housing prices are astronomical. The more houses we have, the more that will come down. But that's part of the process. So,
and if this property is developed into condominiums, do you have any idea how many units will go on this property?
no, there's a lot of factors that go into it. We don't have the answers for at this point in time. But I think the $600,000 was a fair offer. We probably could squeak out a little more if it was marketed for a longer period of time and in a different approach. But our holding costs continue to go up, and we could end up losing money in the long run.
I understand that. I understand that. Did you or anyone else in the city get a commercial appraisal on this building? Or are you going strictly by the bid value?
No, as it's currently zoned, we could not appraise it as a commercial property.
Did you get a professional appraisal on a residential property.
I'm not sure if the planner did. I was not involved in that process. Again, being a competitive bid, it's more based on what the investors are willing to spend.
I understand that. It's like any other bid that we bid. Bids come to us every month, twice a month, and sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we say yes, sometimes we say no, sometimes we say go back out for rebid. This is no different. Just because it's a
Well, it is
revenue
though,
item.
because if we market the property, we're going to have commissions to pay. This was the process that the administration chose to go with because it was going to result in a quicker sale for a fair price. And so I'm the only expert in the room regarding real estate value, and I don't see this as a problem. I think we're going to end up losing money if we don't approve this.
Losing money because of,
Well, we'd have to heat the building over the winter. We'd have to secure the building over the winter. You could have problems with the roof, and now you've got bigger problems. Right now, with the $600,000, the investor is going to take care of all the remediation that needs to happen. We don't know that a subsequent buyer would be willing to do that. There's a lot of unknowns, but in this, it's a net to the city. If we have to pay a commission to market this property in a different manner, you're going to lose some money from that as well.
and this current building will be demoed? Is that it?
Based on the zoning being residential, they wouldn't have a possibility of using this building as it sits today.
So the building's going to be demoed?
That would be my belief.
I can't tell you, Mr. Lattiser, that I was able to look in the zoning code, and if this developer were to approach you after going to the planning board for one of these PDRs, because it's an A7 district, they can put potentially 12 units per acre. The site's roughly 1.8 acres. So if you back out, stormwater designs and the parking and the access driveway, I'm guessing you're looking from anywhere from maybe 18 to 24 units. I'm just guessing, but that's 12 units per 40,000 square feet, and it's 1.8 acres. You can, go from there, but I assume that's what this developer is ultimately going to come at us with by way of density.
Well, now, Director, thank you for that information. That's something we could have had 15 minutes ago, and that does help me a lot. And it should help everyone else here too, because let's round it out to 20 units, 20 residential units. The median cost of housing right now in the state of Rhode Island is $350,000. That's $7 million. $7 million is going to generate a significant tax revenue, in addition to the $600,000. So if the $600,000, maybe it is a little light, maybe it's not. But at least now I have some solid information to make an intelligent, informed decision on whether or not 600,000 is a good value. And I think it was worth having that discussion, at least on this end, for a few minutes.
Excuse me, Councilman.
That's all I have.
Excuse me,
I
Councilman.
have the appraised value of the property. You've given me 18 to 24 units. I can do the math on what the revenue stream will be to the city, and I'm fine. Now I have my answers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the council president getting those answers before this evening. Councilwoman Travis.
Thank you. I understand when Council President was talking about it being in Ward 7 and, the thoughts that you had about the meetings. I remember when it was in Ward 6 and a lot of the good times and a lot of events that we've had there. We had many events. Fowles had their chopstick auction there year after year. And we had a lot of good times there. And my first impression was, wow, we should be getting a lot more than 600,000. It was right from the beginning. But I'm very excited hearing about the housing. We need the housing, and like Councilman Lattiser said, that's more taxes money that's going to be coming to us. So it's going to be sad when they do knock it down because of all the memories that the seniors had there. And but if the housing comes the way they're saying, I think it's going to be a good deal. So I feel a little better than when I sat down before, because I thought we should have got a lot more than 600,000. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Councilwoman. Councilman Ricks.
A question for the City Council solicitor. Would it be proper for the city to include stipulations if at the start of the bidding process, the city desired to include stipulations on, say, the number of residential units on the parcel?
I don't think it would be appropriate at this time to apply retroactive restrictions to what was done through a public procurement.
Right, but my question was, if we went back in time and it was the start of the process, would it be proper for the city to have stipulations when putting out the request for proposals?
The city would, be eligible on a fresh RFP to design a desired specs to any project or of a sale of property in the future. If there's only certain things that they wanted to foresee that would be eligible for the city to design, only receiving responses that were consistent with certain objectives.
Thank you. I'll just have a brief comment here that the city has numerous other public properties that may or may not come up for bids in the future. That's all hypothetical, but I want us to keep in mind the precedent that we're setting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Further questions, comments from the council? Questions, comments from the public? Questions, comments from the public? Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, bid 2023-109, design, build, and install a salt barn. This is found on page 4. Good evening, Christy.
Good evening. Excuse me. Public Works is requesting to award to Iron Horse Structures, excuse me, the design, build, and installation of a salt barn in the DPW yard in the amount of $226,000.
Thank you. And this was, upon the letter, this is using ARPA funds to ensure that any purchases we make are protected. And if we have a light snow and we purchase all the salt, we have a place to store it
Yes.
for the following year. I believe it's my microphone. We have a place to store it for the following year. So this is an investment that'll pay off in the long run as
Yes.
salt costs go up. Thank you. Questions from the committee? Councilman Foley.
Has the city of Warwick ever had one of these before?
No, we haven't.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. Hi, Christy.
Hi.
Christy, you reference in your position paper the possibility of potential losses because of the way this salt and sand is being stored now. Have we had any losses, say, in the past 5-6 years?
I'm sure we have. The pile sits in the yard, it's uncovered. So when we have any precipitation, it melts the salt. Excuse me. And then we do protect it with either salt bales, with hay bales or filter sock to stop it from eroding into like the catch basins. But it's not the perfect answer for us. If we had something to cover it, then we could certainly, it would close on both ends as well. So it would be beneficial to us to save product from year to year.
So I know that over the years, we've had some good years, we've had some bad years. The good years, we've used very little salt, and you've had a lot that you've had to store somewhere, right? So somebody's is protecting or having to protect this, however you try to do it the best that you can, and yet it's still not successful in some cases. In addition to that, I would expect that with this shelter, that it would make it a lot easier for loading this material up, getting it out on the trucks, out to the roads, et cetera, without having to deal whatever it is that your customer is dealing with because it's not covered, right?
Right.
What's the square footage of this dome? I assume it's going to be like something you see off at 37?
Not quite that big. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact size. Is it 50? I don't remember the exact size.
Yeah, it's about 60 by 120.
60 by 7,200 square feet?
Sounds right.
7,200 square feet. So it's about $300 a square foot to build it. Okay. No, I think this is something that's good. I think it's good for the department. I think it's going to make things easier on what you guys have to do to get those streets prepared. Once again, I need to be able to put this computation together in my head to come up with a number that it all makes sense. Thank you.
Christie or Director, does this barn need any kind of maintenance over time?
We have to feed the horses, so, no, I'm just kidding. Nothing out of the ordinary. There's a warranty on it. I should have brought the bid specs with me. I'm sorry, I didn't. But there is a warranty period. I believe it's a year. But the way it's going to be structured is, it's kind of like a big canvas. So it doesn't require heat, doesn't require, anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions for members of the council? Members of the public? Questions for members of the public? Thank you. Item 3 is bid 2023-117, purchase of bulk road salt, found on page 7. I know the president has some certain words about road salt being purchased in September, early September. Go ahead, Christie.
Public Works is requesting to award the bid for the purchase of road salt to Eastern Salt Company in the amount of $150,000 for a 1-year period expiring October 28th, 2023.
Thank you. And wishful thinking, if we purchase $150,000 of road salt and we don't use it, now we'll have a place to store it.
Correct.
And therefore we paid off half of it. We're already making our money back.
That's right.
Exactly. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Yeah, absolutely. Councilman Foley.
Just a quick question. Is that amount, not the dollar amount, the weight amount, is that our average first purchase in the season?
No, we purchase it as we go. So at the beginning, prior to the season, we'll probably order, 300 ton. And then, it gets mixed with some sand, and then we go from there. It depends on how much it snows, and then we just order accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you. Christie, this is up to 150,000, right?
Correct.
Typically, that's how you bid it. Okay, and I just need to correct a number. A minute ago, I said it was about $300 a square foot. It's actually $32 a square foot, so I had a decimal point in the wrong place. So that's not a bad number. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you all. The next item to be discussed is bid 2023-132, municipal, police, fire employees term life insurance. And that is found on page,
Excuse me, Chairman. I had another addition that's well over.
I'm sorry,
Does that need to be moved up?
you wanted to do that one next?
I just didn't want it to be in that same,
Oh, okay.
just to make sure I have no problem waiting. I just wanted to make sure it didn't get missed, that's all.
I do have it on my note. I was going to do it right at the,
Okay.
after the others. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we'll go to bid 2023-132 municipal police and fire employees term life insurance. This is found on page 10. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Stephen Rotondo, Personnel Director. The city provides $50,000 worth of term life insurance to all municipal employees and sworn police and fire staff. We put out a request for proposal. Those policies were held by two different companies with different expiration dates. About 16 months ago, I came to this body and requested that we extend the police and fire so that they would all expire at the same time and we could put them all out to bid at the same time, which we did do. We've selected Ox Insurance Company. They were the best bidder. They were the lowest bidder and met all of our other criteria. The overall cost per $1,000 of life insurance is in the bid provides for the municipal employees about 11% savings. That's on the cost per $1,000 of insurance. And for the active police and fire, it's about a 12% savings on the cost per $1,000. So we're recommending the Ox Company. It's a three-year contract. It's flat for all 3 years. And the cost for the optional insurance for the employees who have an option, municipal employees have an option to purchase either $10,000 or $20,000. And firefighter retirees have optional life insurance that they can buy all at the cost themselves. The cost for employees is flat with the current rates for 3 years.
Thank you. And these rates, I did a little research on this. These rates also, what a city invests in the safety and the rating, if you will, of a city's safety within their departments also affects the rates and the good rates that we get with these, that the insurance companies deliver.
I think so. I think that's the reason that the rates came down a little bit. We haven't had a lot of claims. There's also for the municipal employees is accidental death, AD&D, accidental death and dismemberment. And our record, thankfully, has been very good.
Right. Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you. Director, the insurance policy, particularly the life insurance policies, I know, in the private sector, they're oftentimes age rated. Are these policies just a flat rate for everyone, or are they age rated?
No, these are a flat rate for all employees. There is one difference. For retired firefighters, they can purchase the $50,000. It automatically adjusts down to $25,000 when they reach age 70. Otherwise, though, for all of these, it's the same rate. It's blended. It's a blended rate.
Why does it drop down?
I don't know. I think that was part of a contract negotiation years ago that you could purchase it at one rate up until the age of 70, and then it comes down. Obviously, your risk goes up once you've reached 70.
Right.
So I think the city just didn't want it, or the rates are just better. I really don't have an explanation for that.
Interesting. I'm curious with your choice for OCHS. Over here, and I think I have the answer, but I want to hear what your conclusion is. Municipal basic 50,000. So that's all the municipal workers, right?
Yes.
They're at 0.106 on the OCHS, which is the lower number. But on police and fire, PGIA, they have a lower rate than OCHS by a reasonable amount. It's maybe 7% or so on police and fire. And then the firefighter retiree, it's less than OCHS. So why do you feel that OCHS is the better deal when you run these numbers?
There's more municipal employees, and I don't have my individual bids in front of me, but can you give me that number again on the?
Yeah, on the municipal basic 50K with accidental death and dismemberment, it's 0.106 per thousand, that's a good number, because on PGIA, they're 0.118. But on the municipal fire and firefighter retiree, police and fire and the firefighter retiree, PGIA is less. So I think the answer is municipal workers, if I remember correctly, it's somewhere around 880 or so total municipal workers.
That seems about right, yes.
And between police and fire, we have about 400 total.
We have a lesser number for police and fire, goes about that rate. And also, when we did the calculation of the costs, the lion's share, 70% of it was what's the cost to the city? So there was some better rates for the retirees, but they're completely out of pocket. We don't pay for them.
Right.
So so when I was factoring in the cost value of this, I only looked at what's the cost to the city.
Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is, and I just wanted to make sure I was on the right page with this. The answer is where OCHS is less on municipal, there's twice as many people, so you have twice the savings versus the increased cost on police and fire with 50% less is why OCHS ended up the better number.
They did, and they when I factored it all in, OCH was a much better price overall.
With the police and the municipal, when those employees, when they retire or they leave the city, do they have the option to continue that coverage if they so desire? I mean, to pay for it on their own, obviously. Kind of like the, what's the plan I'm thinking of, where you leave employment, you can continue healthcare for 180 days or whatever it is.
Cobra, yeah.
Do they have that option?
No, that's what's interesting about this. The option ends for your optional insurance, except for the retired firefighters. Everyone else, it ends, and you have to go out and look for your own insurance, either universal life or term life insurance.
That might be, a nice benefit to add in the negotiations with the insurance companies in the future, where a retiree or someone that leaves the city would be able to continue the life insurance in the accidental death and dismemberment. That's a tough policy to get. And as you get older, it becomes more difficult. That might be a nice negotiation to have with these insurance companies in the future, where our employees that do leave would be able to carry that forward and pay it on their own. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, folks.
The next item is bid 2023-037, General Engineering Services. This is found on page 14. Good evening.
Good evening. Terry DiPetrillo, Water Division Chief. The Water Division went out to bid for engineering services for a 2-year term for a total of $120,000. We received 4 bids. On the ranking system, Stantec Beta and WSP Incorporated. We selected the fourth H2O Engineering, didn't meet the criteria of the bid specs. So we're looking at $60,000 per year for 2 years.
So I'm looking at this, and one of the winning bid is WSP USA, and it has an address of Valley Street in Providence, but on the bid sheet, it's Warwick, Post Road, Warwick. Same company?
Correct.
Okay, that's just an outlet.
Satellite office. right?
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you. Terry, do you have any engineers on staff in the water department now?
No, we don't.
And this 2-year bid, so these 2 engineers, they will be totally independent contractors. We have no benefits on them, no payroll, overhead, et cetera, right?
That's correct. Maybe the 3 of them, Councilman, they're independent contractors, and what it is for engineering services, emergency services, something arises, services where we can stop planning jobs, get shovel ready.
And what do we get for, all right, so let's take the 3 of them. So it's about 40,000 each. We'll just use that as a guideline. What do we get for $40,000? Do you have a set amount of hours that they will perform? Is this unlimited? Is it guided by how many projects they do, the extent of the projects? How do you know, how do we know, how do the taxpayers know what we can expect to receive from these engineering firms, either from 40,000 each or a total of 120,000? Do you have a scope of work that has been proposed to them, what you expect from each of these engineering firms for this money?
Yeah, so it's not to exceed the 120,000 per year, and this is an as-needed basis. So the point system in picking the 3 firms gives us negotiating power. So when a project does arise, we can go to these 3 firms and negotiate price between these 3 firms. Not saying so some of these firms might not get any work if their prices are not competitive. So it's as each project arises, we go to the 3 companies, and then they're going to negotiate the price with us.
Okay. Now I understand a little clearer. So this isn't something that, it's based on an hourly service, or you're going to have a project, whatever. You're going to replace this water main, and you need to have engineering done. So you're going to reach out to the 3 firms and say, okay, give us a price for the engineering that's related to this.
Right.
And wherever you get the better number,
Yes.
that's who you go with, and then it caps out as 120.
That's correct.
Good. That's cool. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. The next item is bid 2023-069, purchase for Ford Escape SE. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm here before you to seek permission to purchase 4 Escapes SEs, all-wheel drive, piggybacking the police bid of $25,908. The funding will be through ARPA. It's already been approved through the capital budget.
Thank you. And this is part of the administrations and the program that the city and the administration work through to kind of modernize our fleet and bring Warwick more into the 21st century, if you will.
Thank you.
And these cars, unlike the current cars, have no holes in the floors, right? These
holes in the floors,
These aren't the Flintstones? Okay.
I have to keep buying the inspector's new shoes.
Yeah, I always find it funny that when I see one of those old Ford automobiles pull up to do an inspection and it's like, rusted and barely working, and then they go up and, do an inspection on a business or whatever it may be, that, you look at the vehicle they're showing up in and they're going to set a standard. That's always been kind of like a red flag. So I personally am happy to see that, the administration has taken these steps. Questions, comments from the committee? Council President McAllister.
Thank you. Good evening, Director. I concur with the chairman on that. I was given one of your employees, I saw him in the neighborhood and I was like, it's a pretty nice car you got here. I think this was brand new when I was in high school. Do you have these, are they holding these cars for you? We're having trouble getting cars brought to you?
This will be part of the 2023 production.
Yeah.
So I'm before you tonight to get this going and with their production. So we'll receive them in 2023.
Because we need a long runway to get cars now, both new and used. Okay, I just wanted to get a timeline on that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to just clarify one thing. When you and I spoke before this meeting, when we had our conversations, one of the items that you brought up was that as you stated in your paper, the city made a mass purchase of these vehicles, so you were able to ride upon that purchase and get these vehicles at this price because we bought in so much bulk.
Correct.
And that was what was able to get it, which was a very good move and a smart time to do it. Thank you. Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you. I also believe that this is, first of all, it's long overdue. Your department has been driving around in vehicles that it's just so ironic, the condition of those vehicles, and you're going up to people's properties and citing them because their grass is too long, their paint's peeling, or whatever the case may be, and we're driving around in vehicles that belong in a junk pile. So kudos to you and the administration for doing this, even better with the COVID money. And it particularly caught my eye on the number. I was talking with someone over the weekend, and they were out looking for a Ford truck. And this one dealer they went to said, yeah, the prices start at $3,500 over sticker. $3,500 over sticker. So this is long overdue. I'm really pleased for your department and your staff to, finally be getting some vehicles that, we can be proud of as well. So good job, and good job to the administration for spending some of that COVID money on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you, Director.
Thank you for your support.
Yes, sir. This next bid is bid 2023-118, structural firefighter coats and pants. Good evening, Chief. This is found on 31. I apologize. Good evening, Chief.
Fire Department's recommending the award for structural firefighting coat and pants go to Fire Tech and Safety out of Winthrop, Maine. This is for an award not to exceed $99,400.
Thank you so much. And these are required turnout gear for our firefighters to perform their duties.
Correct.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Gebhardt.
Thanks. Chief, I remember did we make a purchase with some grant money on these, or am I mistaking that with something else?
No, last award, this expired 6 months ago, but what we wound up doing a year ago was to extend the award 6 months and keep the current pricing. So we locked in the current pricing with the inflation and bought gear for the new class of recruits that was coming on, and which was a good move because this is 16% higher than it was 6 months ago. So.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, you're going to be really, really surprised at this, but I don't have any questions for you on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
The next item is found on page 30, is found on page 36. It is bid 2023-129, traffic, street, and pole light maintenance and repairs. Good evening, Christie. And then right after this, we'll address bid 2023-197.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public Works is requesting to award the bid for traffic, street, and pole light maintenance and repair to Arden Engineering in the amount of $50,000 for 1 year period ending October 24th, 2023. I just do want to point out that this is, the scope of work is a little bit more than it is typically. We are adding the street light maintenance into this contract that's budgeted out of the engineering budget. So it is expanded a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for members of the committee? Councilman Gephardt.
We chatted about this one, but just because there's a process change on the street lights, so I think we acclimated to the current vendor where they have the call center and we go through them. So can you just, for everyone else's benefit, go through how that'll work in the new world? Should we approve this?
So I'm not sure if there's a time frame where we still have Prism or not, but when that ends with them, this vendor, it'll be funneled through the Department of Public Works office. Probably one of our engineering staff will be the one that fields the calls for the streetlight issues and contacts the vendor and coordinates all that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions for members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you. So Christie, I know that there was a lot of time spent on hiring Prism and getting to the fancy lights, et cetera, et cetera. I know at least one spot in my ward, I'm still trying to get a light installed, and that has not happened as of yet. Now, Prism, obviously, is just going to be like around the corner, right, where their contract is over.
I don't know about the Prism contract. That did not come from the Public Works Department. I believe it was done through planning, so we'll have to get the details from them. But when it reverts to Public Works, we have the contract in place.
So what happens to these hundreds and hundreds of lights that Prism has already installed? What happens with any warranties that we have for the product as well as the workmanship? And if it is installation failure that requires service, who's going to bear the cost for that? Is it Prism, or is it going to have to be paid for by the city, or is Arden Engineering going to be responsible for that?
Well, again, we'd have to get the terms of the contract from planning that is in place right now with Prism to see what they are. We don't have any of that information. When that ends, when Prism is done with fulfilling their contract with the city, this vendor will take over. But until, we obviously won't have this vendor do any work if there's still a contract with Prism. But we just need to get the details of what that is.
So this says that the manner of the award is from October 25th, 22. So that means the bid is expiring on October 25th, 2022?
The bid that we have in place right now that expires on October 24th, 2022 is for streetlights. I'm sorry, not streetlights to a point. We have some traffic signals. We have crosswalks. We have lights at the ball fields. We have decorative lighting. That's what the one that is currently in place encompasses. We changed the specification when we went out to bid to include the streetlights. So when the time comes where we need to have our own vendor on board, we have the ability to do that.
So it's really two separate items then, the product that you're changing to and any prior installation services, it's like two separate issues then?
Right, but we don't have the Prism contract, so that we would need to get to see what the terms are.
Who does have the
I
prison
believe
contract?
planning has the contract.
Who has?
Planning?
Oh, okay, but the city has a contract?
Yes.
Okay,
It just didn't originate with Public
got
Works.
it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Councilman Lattiser.
Sorry. Christie, on the hourly rate, the per hour and the overtime per hour, is that a result of the contract bid? In other words, Arden Engineering, their hourly rate is $95 per hour for journeyman, and their overtime rate is $118.75. Prism is $116 hourly rate, and their overtime rate is $210. Is that something, those numbers, the overtime numbers, $210, $118.75, is that a rate that was generated by the bid? Or does that go along with everything else, like overtime, at least in my world, over 40 hours?
So what you see in front of you, all
Sorry?
these numbers, this is how the vendor submitted their bid.
Okay,
So each vendor submitted those numbers. It's just transferred by purchasing
got it.
for the bid minutes.
And, okay, so you just said it's been transferred from one document by purchasing to this document. Are we absolutely sure that the hourly rates that I'm looking at here are in fact the actual rates that will be charged?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Once again, any questions from the public? Questions from the public? Thank you. If I could ask members of the committee and the council to please refer to the last page of our bid package to bid number, or item 21, bid number 2023-197. That is found on page 125. It is the purchase of a HG 6000 horizontal grinder. Christie?
Public Works is requesting under a 56-6 through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement to purchase a horizontal grinder in the amount of $787,216.26. Currently, we do not have a grinder that functions. Our compost facility, our piles are very big, and we did have a company come in a couple of months ago and grind the piles down for us. But with the amount of material that's dropped off by residents, anything that is brought in on a yard waste truck, or we also accept East Greenwich's yard waste, we're running into a problem at the facility. Right now, we are permitted through DEM to maintain this facility. However, we are jeopardizing that permit, as well as the airport corporation will take issue with the size of the piles because we are in a flight path. And if we continue to haul material to the landfill, right now we have a cap, I believe it's about 1,900 ton, where we don't pay to deliver it. But once we exceed our cap, they will start charging us $25 a ton to bring the yard waste there. On the other side of that, the yard waste that we grind down and, they work at the facility, we can sell. We can sell it to vendors that come in, landscape companies, residents. We have wood chips. So there is a benefit on the other side of it as well.
Thank you. 100% ARPA
Yes.
funded? So again, something that the funding we received due to the pandemic that we're using to upserve our infrastructure and our utilities.
Yes.
Thank you. Committee, any questions from the committee? Councilman Gephardt.
Was this budgeted as an ARPA?
It was budgeted in fiscal year '24. However, we cannot wait until fiscal year '24. So we are going to put off one of the other items that was budgeted for this fiscal year.
Got it. And what was that other item?
It will likely be for round numbers, $800,000 of the additional paving that we were going to do. It's not likely that we'll get to spend the entire amount that was budgeted, so that would be carried over into next fiscal year.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Christie. So I spoke to the mayor about this, and I think he did a great job of explaining, the reasons why we need to make this purchase, the DEM, Airport Corporation, and, paying for excess tonnage if we have to start going. And as you know, it's the fall, September, those leaves are going to start coming down, and we need some place to put all that for the city of Warwick. I know that the mayor actually looked at another unit, sent a couple of people to go check that out, and it was not right for the city. So he did not make that purchase and found this one, and they're saying that this is the right one for the city. So I think the administration has done a good job of looking at trying to tackle this, get it as soon as possible, as the leaves are coming down soon enough. So. And we'll be picking up. So I think this is a very good use of those ARPA funds. Again, a big ticket purchase that, we don't have to, bond for or anything like that. So I think that is a good investment and part of what we're trying to do here as a council and as administration is to get this equipment, get them out, and have them serving the public, and that's what this does. So I support this, but I just wanted to give a little background on the discussions that I've had with the mayor about this, and I feel that this is a very good investment for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as you said, an important part, it directly serves the constituents. Councilman Gebhardt.
Yeah, I went back through the FY23 special budget. So this is the tub grinder, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there was 800,000 budgeted in '24 for this, and it looks like we're going to spend about 30 grand less than that. So
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, this is an excellent purchase, especially with COVID money. But Christie, what's the warranty that we're getting on this machine?
It is it's a 5-year or 6,000 hours.
Okay. And that's what we're paying $11,640 for, right? $840.
The warranty is 80,000.
Sorry?
The warranty is $80,540.
From what I see here, 5-year, 6,000 hour cat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is $11,840.
I was looking at the wrong line.
Okay.
Yes, you're right.
Right. We're going to get to the 80,000 in a minute. So the base price of this machine is $752,376. We have $11,840 in a 5-year, 6,000 hour cat platinum warranty. And to your point on the warranty of $80,540, what is that 80,000? What is that warranty? That's $80,000.
That's the two warranties actually combined together. So if you look above the cat platinum one, there's a Confidence Plus asset protection program for $68,700. So that along with the 11,000 is 80. But we're not purchasing that one. So as indicated by the numbers on the document number 1, what we're asking for in dollars is item 1, item 2, and then item 3, which is the freight and prep.
Right. Which brings us to another point. So the freight and prep for $23,000, what does that include? I mean, this place that we're getting it from is literally 36 miles from here. So what's the freight and prep? What are we getting it for $23,000? What are they doing to this vehicle
The
that they're
machine,
charging us $23,000 for?
we're purchasing it from the facility in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. The machine, so they have two machines. One of them they're identical. One of them is in Hopkinton, which is the one that the mechanics went and looked at. The one that we're purchasing that is brand new is in New York.
No, I understand the one from Hopkinton. It's 36 miles from here.
Right, but we're not purchasing that particular machine. We're getting a brand new one
Oh, a brand new
in New
one.
York. It's in New York,
So to come from New York to here, it's $23,000 to get the machine here.
correct.
How do
It's,
they-
it's going to be an oversized load. You're going to have to get permits to go, through Connecticut or Massachusetts or however they're going to bring it. So there's that. It's not something that you can drive, so you have to tow it. So there's a significant amount of cost associated with it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the cost, transporting large items. I did one from Ferris, California to here, and I can assure you it was not 23,000. It just seems like a crazy number. What's the prep work? What are they doing for prep?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm assuming it would be like a regular PDI, like a pre-delivery inspection. They go through it, make sure it's, tip-top shape before they deliver it.
Okay. Chrissy, I'm still not clear. Why is there a separate line item for warranty for $80,000? And that actually, it's been, which is a good thing, you reduced it, you took it out of your ask of $787. What is the difference between the warranty add-on of $80,000 and the warranty that we're getting for $11,800?
So if you look at page 128 at the top, it says product details. There's a Confidence Plus Asset Protection Program, which helps you maintain expenses. That is $68,000.
Okay, got it,
We're
got it,
not
got it.
purchasing that.
Got it. Okay. Got it. And why aren't you purchasing that?
It's $68,000.
No, I
The warranty
understand
that we're purchasing is sufficient for us.
I know what the 68,000 is. It's actually almost 69,000. I understand that.
It's an optional program that's not necessary for us.
It's not going to benefit us?
No,
Okay.
not for that kind of money.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to call on members of the committee, the council, and the public. If there are any remaining items from the bid package that they would like to pull to discuss, starting with members of the council. I'm sorry, correction, members of the committee. Do members of the committee have any items they wish to pull from the bid calendar to discuss? Councilman Gebhardt requests 2023-130, which is professional printing and mailing of recycling calendar. That is, pardon me. That is item number 13, and that is found on page 60. You want to go, you have more? Oh, okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the committee? All right, any items from the council that they would like to pull to discuss?
Councilman Gebhardt stole mine. I must have been looking at my notes.
Oh, Council President McAllister.
Thank you. Number 17, 2022-074, state of RI tree trimming and shrub removal, page 73. Please.
Thank you, Council President. Is there any further for you? Thank you. Any other items that would like to be pulled from the bid package from members of the public? Any items pulled from the bid package from members of the public? Hearing none, Councilman Gebhardt, we will go with you first. Item number 14, bid 2023-130, professional printing and mailing of recycled calendar. That is found on page 60. Councilman Gebhardt.
Well, Christy's been very helpful today. We've corresponded on this one. I was just shocked by the increase in cost on these calendars. It's like 12 or 13,000 over what we budgeted for this fiscal year for the calendars, and significantly over last year. Christy did send me the breakdown on the postage because we thought maybe that was a big contributor to it, which I didn't get the chance to double check that in the bid. Since I got that information, I just was like, had a little bit of sticker shock on the calendars. You can keep mine.
So did I.
If that helps. I know everyone loves the calendars. Anyways, just felt it's worth just keeping an eye on because the cost is growing.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. To Councilman Gebhardt's point, I'm not super shocked on the increase in costs. Things are particularly crazy, as we all know. Christy, how many calendars do we mail out?
We mail out 29,000, about 29,000. We print, this one, because we've had an increase in the number of houses over the last year, so we are having 32,000 printed, but 29,000 will go in the mail.
So how do you determine that graphic image is not the better deal?
The graphic image with their postage, and I actually had a conversation with Elizabeth Thunton in tourism because she's the one that designs the calendar and is familiar with, media and mailing and things like that. We had a conversation about this, and we agreed that Indiana Printing was the lowest responsible bidder, only because Graphic Image did not provide us with a firm number for postage. Their note says the actual postage rates determined after mailing list is processed and sorted. So with that, there's a good chance that it could go. I mean, there's a chance it could go either way, but chances are it's going to be higher than what they bid. So their postage rate is already a little bit higher than Indiana, but I think it offsets probably the cost to produce the calendar. And with Indiana, we have a firm number. We know exactly what we're paying. There's no question as to, do we have to come back to council? Is it going to cost us $50,000 because of the postage?
Well, I don't agree with that. So the difference between Graphic Image and Indiana Printing is 0.0006. And if you do the math on that, to come up with the $4,674 of additional money that you're suggesting we spend, I think that math works out to somewhere like around 7 million calendars would have to be mailed out. If we take 4,500, that's the math I did, I'm sorry, 45,000. I just figured half the city. 45,000, and even if the postage went up 10 cents, which that's not likely, because these are going to be mailed out in the next few months too, right? Even if the postage went up 10 cents, it would still only be $4,500, and it'd still be cheaper than Indiana Printing. There's no way that we'll be mailing out those amounts of calendars to make Indiana printing the better deal. And in addition to that, they have, Indiana Printing has total cost per revision with press proofs, if needed, they're charging $75. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big number, but it is an additional number. So how can we say that graphic image isn't the best deal? I don't think
Graphic
anyone in
image
this
is only-
room would think for 1 minute that the cost of postage in the next couple of months is going to go up 10 cents. And my other question is, with this postage, I know they use the stamp meters and all that other stuff. For the mailings that we all do, you can buy the forever stamps, right? No matter what the postage goes up to. Your stamp, whatever you paid for it, is what you pay for it. I know it's different with metered mail. But I cannot grasp the fact, and with 30,000 mailing, I did the math at 45,000, with 30,000 mailing, it would have to go up over 15 cents per item to be cheaper, to be more expensive than Indiana. So I don't see how, unless somebody corrects my math, I don't see how we can say Indiana printing is cheaper.
So just to clarify, graphic image put in a number that is essentially a placeholder.
It's essentially what?
It's essentially a placeholder because they, in their bid specification that they submitted, their response, they said that the actual postage rates determined after mailing list is processed and sorted. So they could come back and tell us it's 50 cents a calendar. And that's honestly, they did this last year as well. That's not a risk that I would be willing to take with taxpayer money to come back and say the calendar is going to cost us another $30,000 because of postage.
So are you saying that the vendor is at the liberty of assigning the cost of postage? It doesn't go by what the actual cost of postage is?
That's what they put. Actual postage rates determined after mailing list is processed and sorted. So
Right.
we award them the bid, we give them our mailing list, they process it and sort it, and they come back and say it's 50 cents a calendar. Then what? Then now we have to pay it.
So have you reached out to them and asked them? So this says postage cost per piece. The postage cost, is that the actual, and I'll use just the stamp as an example, is that the cost of the stamp, or is that the cost of processing the postage on these mailers? We all do mailers,
That's the
right?
postage for it to go through the post office. Indiana Publishing is providing us with a firm number, 0.275 per piece. Their entire bid is $45,963. Graphic Image says, well, we think it's going to be $2.81 per piece. However, we won't know until we get your mailing list and it's processed and sorted.
So it's not fair to assume that what they're saying is if the city takes 6 months to give them the order and postage goes up, that they'll increase the cost of that. They'll add on the increase of the postage. So if a stamp goes from 55 cents to 60 cents, they're going to charge us 60 cents. I wouldn't. You say that they could charge us 85 cents or a buck?
They could. That's basically what this says, that they will determine the postage price after they get our list.
So I think we had something similar to this, with this discretionary thing a while back. Have you reached out to Graphic Image and asked them how they base their postage? Is it on the actual cost of the stamp? Or is it factored in with labor and delivering it and stamping it, et cetera, et
So
cetera?
this bid on page 60, the total printing and mailing, excluding postage, is $32,503. So now we have to add postage per piece. So even if they charge us postage on the 32,000 calendars that they printed, they can still come back and say it's 50 cents a calendar. That's not a chance that I'm willing to take to come back to this council and ask for more money for this calendar when we have number, a firm number from the
And
other
I
vendor.
agree with you. It shouldn't be a chance that you would have to take. And the chance wouldn't need to be taken if a call were placed in the graphic image and said, so clarify what you mean, actual postage rates. Actual postage rates, to me, I interpret it as whatever the cost is of that stamp. That's the actual posted rate. They can't charge you 50 cents more to mail, a 50-cent. They can't charge you a
They
buck to
can,
mail.
they
How
can, they
do
absolutely
that?
can. And it says, determine after mailing list is processed and sorted. So we essentially have to award them this bid, send them our mailing list, and then they'll tell us what the actual postage is.
So you're suggesting that they can charge us whatever they want for postage?
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the cost of the stamp is, they can charge us whatever they want?
Correct.
And has that been confirmed by anyone? Sure. Well, sorry.
No,
Chair.
no worries, no worries. Councilman Gebhardt.
So one of the things I asked Christie for when I was looking at this is the last year bid. And we got 6 respondents last year. And the postage cost per piece from those 6 respondents ranges from 25 cents to $2.20. So
Just the postage cost.
just postage per piece. And I think it has something to do with if you do a lot of volume, you can get a better discount as a bulk shipper. So you can get postage that costs less versus if you do less volume, you're going to pay a higher cost. But Graphic Image also last year did a better job with their note, I think, to try to clarify this, because they said estimated postage 26 cents. Graphic Image does not mark up postage. We provide the maximum discount available from the Postal Service. Actual postage to be determined after the list is processed through UPS. So, they did clarify it a bit better, but there's still the uncertainty that there's no guarantee in what the cost is going to be through them. So, it's a little, again, the difference, the spread between these two is, $3,000. So it's not life-altering here.
It's $4,674.
Yeah, but there is some, it's nice to have the certainty on Indiana that they're guaranteeing their postage rate.
So what we're saying is, we have no idea, we have no clue what they're including in their postage. None. That's what we're saying. And that's ridiculous. And also, this says here, after mailing list is processed and sorted. When this bid was sent out, we get our walking papers, right? You pick up your walking papers, what do you get? You get a list of every voter in the city, right? You get a list of that. I think we have lists of every occupant or every address in the city. I think it would be pretty easy to just include in your bid request that base your prices on 30,000 pieces.
That's what
So
the bid says.
This
Excuse
bid
me,
right here,
Councilman.
actual postage rates determined after mailing list is processed and sorted. What we are saying is, we don't have a clue how they determine their postage rates. And there are other things that can go into the postage rates. The cost of processing the thing, running it through the machine. There's other associated costs up and beyond the cost of the stamp. And that's what I'm trying to find out. Does anyone know what that postage means? And apparently, we don't.
Thank you, Councilman. Council President McAllister.
I think Councilman Gephardt and Councilman Lattiser hit on that. It's not just the cost of the actual stamp, too. When they're talking postage, it's their processing, everything like that. That's why there's the swings, like Councilman Gephardt talked about before. It's like if you do a political mailer, kind of mark up some of the stuff, not the people that we would work with, but other people, for the postage. So I think that's what the swing is. So I agree with the administration in that we want to know what we're paying for. This is the exact price. We want to process this. This is the bill. Let's send it out. Whereas if we were to go with the other one, we could be hit with another bill after the processing, everything like that. So I agree with the administration's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like just to carry on. I know that this committee, just from what we've experienced in the past and in this council, but I'll speak for the committee. There's no one likes the surprises, the added on surprises. So I commend you, Christie, for remembering the past that went on, and I want to commend Councilman Gebhardt for doing his part before this meeting to make sure he spoke to you and getting all the information on that. Because it is something where you just don't think about. You see it, but then that little note right there, it really doesn't go into the full process. So I can definitely understand and respect the questioning that went on. And I think you did a good job of really kind of explaining and, like you said, defending the costs. I will say in the closing on this, for me, this is one of the things that I always hear that the neighbors like. You know, this is one of the services that the citizens of Warwick absolutely love, is getting their calendars, and they absolutely love seeing their neighbors' pictures in the calendars.
Well, I don't know if you remember, there was several years ago, I hope whoever was on the council at that point, but there was a decision made to not do a calendar, and I thought there was, there was going to be a line outside Public Works.
Right. And it's actually one of the things I know a lot of us do is we take one when someone moves into our ward. We take a calendar with us. That's my, hey, welcome to Warwick. Here's our recycling list. Here's all the information of the city services that we supply, you know, and it's a great thing. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you, Councilman. Yeah, absolutely. Council President McAllister requested item number 17, bid 2022-074, State of Rhode Island tree trimming and shrub removal, found on page 73. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I just want to point out that I think this is one of the most requested things that we get as council members. You know, there's a tree in my yard, storm's supposed to come, or the storm came, and trees are going down. And I think it's a really good idea to piggyback on the state with multiple vendors. As we all know, trying to get a truck out there, especially after an event, it's really difficult. So this gives the city more options. So I think this is an important thing that's a supplement to what the city does as well. But I know I get these requests all the time. To send somebody out, look at the tree. Is it a city tree? Is it the residence tree? And then who's going to take it down and whatnot. So I just wanted to point that out for the record, that I think this is an important thing. And I agree with having the multiple vendors on here because to try to get a service out, especially when it's, after a storm, that it's not just the city of Warwick that these vendors are going, they're going across the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and exactly what you spoke on. We had a situation, my friend and neighbor is sitting here this evening to speak on it. We had a situation where a tree fell on a house in my ward on Thursday before Labor Day. And the gentleman had one hell of an experience, if you will, this past weekend, and is still dealing with it. To have something like that happen right before Labor Day, and this will help address that, and I'm glad to see that it's on the bid. It's something, unfortunately, that situation happened, but it's good to see that this is being this would have been addressed prior to that, hopefully. Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Comments from members of the public? Thank you. May I have a motion on May I have a motion on PCR 105-22?
Favorable action.
I have a motion for favorable. Second. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. May I have an acceptance for the committee minutes held on August 15th?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 1 is PCR 105-22, resolution relative, correction. PCR 106-22, resolution relative to abatements. Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Neil Dupuy, Director of Assessing. This month, we have abatements for you in the amount of $18,394.88. As usual, with this time of year, the majority are for personal exemptions. but I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Neil. Committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? May I have a motion?
Motion favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Item number 3 is PCR 87-22, formerly bid 2023-442, traffic light repairs. Welcome back, Chrissy.
This one has been before the council. This is the third time. Before the last meeting, I had heard from the company. They had provided the documentation that I requested. It wasn't in enough time to get it passed around to all the council members, but I'm assuming that everybody has it now.
I'm so sorry, I didn't understand that.
The documentation that was emailed, was it?
Yes, that's right,
provided?
from the previous
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so so I remember now, you got it to us, they sent it to you at the last.
That
Yeah, like a
afternoon.
half hour before
Yeah.
the meeting. You tried to get it out to us as fast as you could, and we didn't have a chance to review it. So I'm assuming everyone had a chance to review it. So any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion favorable, a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Christy, for your follow-up on that and getting that done. Item number 4 is PCR 88-22, formerly bid 2022-441, repair diesel fuel fill. Christy.
So this one, I have not gotten the backup documentation from the vendor yet. However, there are 2 issues of sorts with this. One of them is that the trust will not reimburse us for the $49.0670 until we can provide them with proof of payment. So that is one thing. They actually emailed me again yesterday and asked if I had proof of payment, which obviously I don't. The other issue is that this bill, particularly the city portion, the $1750, is from fiscal year '22. And I'm sure that at some point soon, finance is going to want to close that out. So I'm more than willing to, continue to chase the company to get the backup, but it's kind of important that we get this paid to the vendor and get reimbursed by the trust and get it paid out of the proper fiscal year.
So again, if we pay this to trust, we'll still reimburse the $4,906?
Yes.
And 70 cents, and the city is on the, that we're aware of, since, well, you haven't heard from Trask, I assume they haven't sent us a follow-up invoice with any interest or?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. To the members of the committee. To the members of the council. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. So essentially, what we're thinking about doing here is giving in to this vendor that obviously refuses to provide us with the information or documentation that we required for a charge that they have assessed the city. Whether the trust is paying for it or not, ultimately, the taxpayers pay for it because they pay the premiums that the trust charges. So, having said that, do you intend to put a, how do we call it? A restraining order, let's say, on that vendor for any future bids? If they are that obstinate that they refuse to provide you with documentation on how they arrived at a price, that is not a vendor I want to do business with. So do you intend to put a no business order on that vendor?
Well, I can't speak to why they haven't sent me the documentation yet. I haven't gotten a refusal or anything. I just haven't heard back from them. So I feel like that's kind of strong language to say that they're refusing and they're being obstinate. It's for whatever reason, and I try to follow up, not daily, but every couple of weeks. Hey, do you still have that? But at this point now,
This is
I need-
this is 2 months now, right?
I understand, but at this point, we do need to there's several things hanging in the balance here. So I'm still willing to chase the vendor to get the backup documentation and provide it to the council members, but I really am asking if we can get this bill paid so we can get reimbursed by the trust and the balance can be applied to the proper fiscal year.
Why would I want to pay them if I don't know what I'm getting? I just went through that with one of my vendors. They sent me a bill. The bill was wrong. I knew it was wrong. And I said to them, you're not getting paid until you get me the correct bill. But they didn't take 2 months to get me the correct bill. They got me the correct bill in a matter of days. So why would I want to pay any vendor that is for whatever reason, after 2 months, haven't provided you with the documentation on how they charge us for what they charge us? Why would I want to pay them? I would never pay them until they produce what we are entitled to get. And that is the proof and documentation of how they arrived at the price. I would never pay them. I will not vote yes on this item because of those reasons. That is absurd.
Actually, Councilman Christie, if I may, I like what the councilman said, and I appreciate what the councilman said. Is this one of many vendors, or is this the selected vendor?
In terms of this.
In terms of who we call, are they on our vendor list, our official vendor list that was approved by this council?
This vendor, so this is before the council as a 56-6. We don't have a bid in place for things like this because they don't typically happen. It just so happened that whoever ran over the fuel fill, it was open, it was waiting for concrete, and for whatever reason, somebody ran it over, and we ended up having to have this work done because we couldn't leave it like that. We were risking water in the tank. We needed to find out if the tank was compromised, and there's 2 layers to it. So, and this was literally, I called the insurance company and said, hey, we have a problem here. Are you guys going to cover it? They came out, they looked at it. They said, yes, we'll cover. They don't cover excavation, which is the city's portion of this bill, but they would cover the rest. So it was literally like within an hour, we said, okay, we need to get this fixed. We were sending garbage trucks to fire stations to get fuel because we didn't even know if we could pump diesel.
Right.
So it was an emergency thing. And I understand the councilman's point about the bill. I completely get it.
Yeah.
And this vendor is one that we do use for our fuel issues because there's just, not very many of them around, so.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Councilman.
Christie, I am not disputing or criticizing why you hired this vendor. I understand the nature of the situation. You had to get that fixed. You took care of it. You did your job. That's not my point.
The chairman had asked if there was a vendor list. This was not
understand that,
part of a
but I
bid,
wanna make
so
it
that's why I
clear.
explained it.
I want to make it clear that I am not criticizing you or the department for your reaction to getting this fixed. You needed to do it. You did your job. You got it fixed. This company, this Trask Petroleum Equipment Company, has not provided you or responded to your request for a detailed explanation of why they are charging $6,656 for what they did. That is very concerning to me. I would never hire a company that doesn't provide me with documentation as to how they arrived at a price. And I would not pay them until they did. And I would not use the reasoning for paying them is because, we got to get it off the books. No, we don't have to get it off the books. We don't have to do anything until they give us the documentation that you're entitled to, that you've requested, and that we expected. And anything less, for me, will be a no vote on this item. I'm not going to vote to pay 5 cents to a company that won't justify their rates and how they arrived at that price.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Comments, questions from members of the public? Thank you. Looking for a motion.
I move favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. The time is now 6:55 and the Finance Committee is closed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're at 6:55. I think we'll take this 5 minutes, let the council members get up and stretch their legs. We will start the council meeting at 7, and then we will return after right into committees. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I call the September 7th, 2022 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister.
Here.
Mr. Foley. Here. Mr. Gephardt. Mr. Howe.
Present.
Mr. Lattiser.
Here.
Mr. McElroy.
Here.
Mr. Ricks.
Here.
Mr. Snappy. Ms. Travis.
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. At this time, will you please rise for the salute to the flag, and then Councilman Howe, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much for the members in attendance and watching at home. We are starting the council meeting at this time, but we're going to do general communications and executive communications. Then we're going to go back into committees. We still have some more work to do in committees, and then we finish that work, we will come back to the full council meeting. We are now under general communications, which is announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I have a few. First is I just want to remind residents of the neighborhood improvement funds that are available through ARPA funds. There's a number of different ways to get your ideas to your council people. We have a website. If you go on the City of Warwick's website and the City Council website, you can fill it out there. Or just pick up the phone, call your council person, send an email to your council person, contact the mayor's office. We want to hear from you and hear for your ideas on ways that we can improve our infrastructure, improve our neighborhoods. Schools are back in session, started last week. So I want to say good luck to all the students, to the teachers, all the guardians. Also want to remind all of our residents to be careful driving. There will be people walking the bus stops and early in the morning and in the afternoons. So everyone be careful, be safe out there. And I think everyone is sad to see the summer end, but they get to hang out with their friends again in school. So I wish everybody a really good school year. And finally, for my report here, the city is moving into the Sawtooth Building next door to City Hall. It is really a beautiful building. The city and AAA did an outstanding job of not only keeping this historic mill alive, but upgrading it and getting it ready for the community to use. So they're still working on things. They still have to finish a couple of parking lots, and the city departments are going to move over department by department. But I'm really proud of the move so far. The city is on schedule for the move. When they came to us with this lease over a year ago, they had targeted September of 2022 to move in, and here we are, and they're doing that. So there is a community room on the first floor, and once we are settled and in there, residents will be able to reserve that for your community meetings. So it's a great building. It's a historic building in Apponaug, right by City Hall, and we'll have all the city departments are going to be there, except for the mayor's office, the board of canvassers, and the city clerk's office. They'll stay here at City Hall. So that is all that I have. Are there other members of the council have anything for general communications? Councilman Ricks.
Obviously, we don't do any campaigning here in the council chambers. I would put out there a nonpartisan message that it's important to get out there and vote. We have a primary election coming up on Tuesday, September 13th. There is early voting here at City Hall leading up to that. Check out the city website for details on early voting hours. But regardless of which ballot you vote on or who you vote for, it's important to get out there and vote. I would also stress that if you are an unaffiliated voter, then you have the options of voting on the Democratic ballot, Republican ballot, or across much of the city, there is actually going to be a specific nonpartisan ballot specifically for those parts of the city where there are 3 or more persons running for school committee to narrow it down to the top 2. Happy voting.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members? Councilman Gephardt.
I would just ask for a brief moment of silence. This is not a Warwick person, but my uncle actually passed today. He served honorably in the Army. He was a small business owner for many years, restaurant owner, and he was quite ill and is at peace now. So a brief moment of silence, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you, and we're sorry for your loss, Councilman. Any other, under general communications from members of the council? Okay, hearing none, if we could pause, we'll go back into committees. I believe the Public Safety Committee is next. Thank you.
The Public Safety Committee is called to order at, I just had it, come on, 7:17. First order of business is acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting on August 15th. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
PCR 107-22, resolution relative to claims. I have a question for the solicitor. My interpretation is that the $300 limit is for damage done by potholes. Other than that, there is no limit.
Correct.
Okay.
The statute speaks specifically to pothole damage claim, of which is not cited here as a a drain cover would
right.
not qualify for that statute.
Okay, so the first item is PCR 107-22, Diana Ferraro, and this is in the amount of $361.96. And we had from the director a recommendation of favorable action. Any questions from the committee? Yes.
Everything seems to be in order. After we have the appropriate announcements for persons to speak, I would be in favor as recommended by the director.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee, from the council, from the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action in the amount of $361.96.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Back to the regular docket. Do we have minutes for that? That we have motion for acceptance of minutes from the August 15th meeting? I thought we did that. 2 sets of them, right? So this is for the second set. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The first item is PCR 99-22 Attila Caracas. This was recommended denied. We held it so that we could reach out to them, and no one is making themselves available tonight. So I'm looking to entertain a motion to, for unfavorable, how would we word that? Oh, first questions. Committee questions? Questions from the council? Questions from the public? Do we have a motion to deny?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item, PCR 102-22, Patrick Blair. We have the same recommendation, is to deny. Questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Questions from the public? A motion for denial?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The Public Safety Committee is adjourned at 7:20.
Thank you, Chairman Foley. The
welcome.
next committee is the Intergovernmental Committee.
No snappy. You're in charge. I'll just. No, sir. Just so you know, I'm ready. Is Donna coming over?
It is now 7:21 and the Intergovernmental Committee agenda is now in session. First order of business, the acceptance of minutes from committee meeting held on August 15th, 2022. Do I hear a motion? A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The first order of business is PCR 92-22, a resolution requesting the General Assembly to amend Rhode Island General Laws 44-5-8.1 regarding waiver of interest on overdue quarter tax payments. Councilman Lattiser?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This request came about from one of my constituents that has lived in the city of Warwick well over 20-some years and moved from his previous location to another location in Warwick, still in Warwick. He moved from one spot to another spot. He has not been late on his taxes and beyond the statute limit of 5 years. He was assessed the fine or the penalty and the interest for being late. He applied for the 5-year ruling and was denied because of the language. It says, have been for the 5-year immediate proceeding of the tax payment, which is overdue, meaning that you had to live in that particular domicile for 5 years. That was like just bizarre to me and made zero sense. I did reach out to the original sponsor of this legislation many years ago, and that was never the intent. The intent was anyone that resides in the city of Warwick and has not been late on their taxes in a 5-year period would be given that one-time pass. The analogy that was used and made all the sense was the good driving record. So you have a good driving record. If you haven't had a moving vehicle violation in 3 years, you could use your good driving record to have that ticket dismissed. The good driving record doesn't follow the car or the truck. It follows the driver. And that analogy I thought was spot on, and that was the intent. The intent was to give the benefit of the doubt to a resident who's lived in the city of Warwick for at least 5 years and has never been late on his or her taxes. Not because you lived in the city of Warwick for 20 years, you've never been late, and 2 years ago you moved to a different location in the city and you were late. By the way, the reason that this individual was late is because at the latter part of December of that year, he was in an operating room, had died on the table with open heart surgery, was given the last rites, revitalized, etc. Last thing that this individual was worrying about was paying his taxes. Eventually, he did actually recover quite well and is doing well. He called me on this because he did live in my ward prior to moving. And when he told me that, I had discussions with the tax collector, and the language as it stands is it is fairly strict in saying that you have to live in that house or domicile for 5 years. That was never the intent. So what I'm asking and looking to do, and I'm sure this is a situation that could maybe even has happened to any of us here, I'm looking to strike out the language "and has been for the 5 years immediately preceding the tax payment, which is overdue." To simply leave it as the property subject to the overdue payment is the residence of the taxpayers. And I think that cleans it up, makes it very clear, very simple, that if you've lived in the city of Warwick for 5 years, regardless of whether it's one house or two houses or three houses, you haven't been late on your taxes, that the city of Warwick wants to recognize that and is understanding with that and will give you that one-time pass on being late. And then, of course, the 5 years start all over again. So that's the long and short of it. Try to give you the best explanation I can. I would reiterate the good driving record. It doesn't have anything to do with the vehicle. It has everything to do with the driver. And I would respectfully ask for your support and favorable action on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions?
Councilman, could I be added as a co-sponsor on that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
It is now 7:27 and the Intergovernmental Committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last committee is the Appointments Committee.
Yes. Good evening. The time is now 7:28, and the Appointments Committee comes to order. First up is the acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on July 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
We just have one appointment this evening. This is a reappointment to the Kent County Water Authority. Charles Donovan, I believe he was appointed as a replacement for someone, actually for, for Mr. Galucci. This is the first reappointment to a full term to expire July 1st, 2032. As it's a reappointment, he is not required to appear this evening, but do any members of the committee have any questions or comments? Go ahead.
I'm in favor of this reappointment and would like to thank Mr. Donovan for his service. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilman.
I also like to mention that I worked with Charles Donovan as a council person when he was here. So I know him very well, and I think he'll do a great job. And I know he stepped up when Councilman Galucci passed away, and I look forward to him working with the Kent County Water Authority.
Okay, great. Any members of the council? Councilman Lattis, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I strongly support the reappointment of CJ, former Councilman Donovan. CJ would sit right next to me when I first got elected, and there was often times when he would help me through, this process that we call resolutions and ordinances and, bids and this, and it's like, no, Ed, over here, over there. And, as you all know, it takes some time to get acclimated to it. So he was very helpful to me. The other thing that I find particularly fitting is that Councilman Donovan also served with Councilman Galucci on the city council. And Councilman Galucci, I think we'd all agree, is pretty much, the godfather of the city council in a very, very good way. He was a mentor to all of us. And I just think it's very fitting that we appoint a colleague of the city council to take over where Councilman Galucci left off. And, I'm more than pleased with this appointment, and we'll certainly be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any others? Council President.
Thank you. I just want to harp on what my colleagues have already mentioned about Mr. Donovan. I spoke to him today. He's really enjoying the work. He knows he has big shoes to fill. He completed the term of Councilman Galucci, and he came to me. He said, "Hey, my term is up. I would like to continue." He feels he's hit the ground running. It's good to have his experience over there, and I'm also be supporting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Seeing no others who would like to comment from the council, any members of the public have anything to add? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is all the business before the Appointments Committee. The Appointments Committee adjourns at 7:32.
Welcome back. We are now back in the full council meeting. If you are following us at home or in person here, we have done roll call, we've done the salute to flag, and we've done general communications. We are now moving to executive communications, and there are none. A on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes for the council meeting held on August 15th. Do we have a motion, Councilman Howe?
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Gephardt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the minutes have been accepted. Number one on the agenda this evening is announcements of appointments. We have one committee report, appointments.
Yes, you are correct. We do have one. If I can get to the right place, I will read it off. And it is Jean Ellis from Ward 2 to the Warwick Housing Authority.
Thank you. That does not require confirmation, so Jean is now on the Warwick Housing Authority. Thank you. Number two is appointments requiring confirmation. We do have one this evening, committee report appointments.
Do have one. It's Charles J. Donovan to the Kent County Water Authority, and the committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilwoman Travis, can you move that for me, please? Second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Foley, Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe, and Councilman McElroy. Are there any questions or comments that were not asked or spoken on earlier in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable actions for Charles Donovan appointment to the Kent County Water Authority.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes. Appointment passes.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan is now on the Kent County Water Authority reappointed. Number three this evening is the consent calendar. First up is PCR 105-22, resolution relative to bids, committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bid 2023-080, sale of former City Hall Annex Building property, Plat 3047, Lot 02510256. Bid 2023-109, design, build, and install salt barn. Bid 2023-117, purchase bulk road salt. Bid 2023-132, municipal fire police employee term life insurance. Bid 2023-037, general engineering services. Bid 2023-069, purchase for Escape SE. Bid 2023-118, structural firefighting coats and pants. Bid 2023-129, traffic, street, and pole light maintenance and repair. Bid 2023-163, message archiver, appliance, and support. Bid 2023-167, sound system council chambers. Bid 2023-115, maintenance and service for fire department generators. Bid 2023-116, aerial and ground ladder testing and inspection. Bid 2023-133, aluminum tandem axle bunk boat trailer. Bid 2023-130, professional printing and mailing of recycling calendar. Bid 2023-124, reversible snow plows, 8 foot, 9 foot, 10, 11, and 12 foot. Bid 2023-127, rebuilding or rebuild exchange transmissions. Bid 2022-074, State of Rhode Island tree trimming, shrub removal. Bid 2023-057, HVAC filters. Bid 2023-175, replace leaking cylinder on lift column. Bid 2022-408, Warwick neck altitude valve parts. Bid 2023-197, purchase HG 6000 horizontal grinder. That completes the bid package, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Howe. Are there any questions from members of the council that were not asked in the Finance Committee earlier this evening? Okay, next up is PCR 106-22, a resolution relative to abatements, committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
I apologize. We approved abatements for in the amount of $18,394.88.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council on the abatements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to number 3. It's PCR 107-22, resolution relative to claims. Committee report, public safety. For action, Councilman Foley. Second by Councilman Ricks. Go ahead, Councilman Foley.
107 PCR 107-22, Diana Ferrero, in the amount of $361.96.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments that were not asked during the Public Safety Committee earlier this evening? All right. Are there any questions or comments on the overall consent calendar? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on the consent calendar.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt? Yes. Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes, consent passes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes. We're now moving to unfinished business. Number 1, PCR 87-22, which is now 2023-442, Committee Report Finance.
Favorable action?
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action?
A second by Councilman Foley. Are there any questions or comments on PCR 87-22 that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Next up is PCR 88-22, which is now 2022-441, Committee Report Finance.
Favorable action?
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action?
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments on PCR 88-22, which is now 2022-441? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said in the Finance Committee meeting, I will be voting no on this. There is no way I'm going to approve any item such as this where the vendor for 2 months has not provided the documentation that has been requested by the city, has completely ignored it, and we have no idea what we're paying for. There is no way I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser. Are there any additional questions? Councilman Howe.
Just a comment, Mr. President. Going on what Councilman Lattiser said, I'm going to vote in favor of this because the trust is pretty much the ones who are going to handle it, and I do realize there's a portion that the city has to pay. However, I want to go on record saying that I would like not to, for the city, to use that vendor until we receive the information. I'd like to know that that vendor be on, as the councilman said, a restricted list or a no-go list until that is ratified. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
Ms. Travis? 6 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Number 3 this evening is PCR 99-22, Committee Report, Public Safety. Okay. Okay. For action, Councilman Foley.
Move unfavorable action, denial of this claim.
Okay. And second by Councilman Ricks. Are there any questions on this that were not asked earlier this evening in the Public Safety Committee? Okay. Hearing none, this is for unfavorable action. So a yes vote is for unfavorable to deny the claim. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes to deny.
Thank you. Number 4, PCR 102-22, Committee Report, Public Safety. For action, Councilman Foley. Thank you. Second by Councilman Ricks. Are there any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the Public Safety Committee? Okay. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is for unfavorable action to deny this claim. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes, unfavorable denial.
Thank you. We're now moving to new business. Number one this evening is PCR 92-22, Committee Report, Intergovernmental.
Favorable action, Mr. President.
For action, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. We spoke about this in length in committee, and I would respectfully request favorable action on PCR 92-22 and including Councilman Foley and Councilwoman Travis as co-sponsors and welcoming anyone else that wants to co-sponsor.
Thank you. And it's second by Councilwoman Travis. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? 8 yes, motion passes.
Thank you very much. We are now moving to unanimous consent. Ward 1, anything to docket under unanimous consent? Ward 2?
Pass.
Ward 3? Pass. Ward 4?
Pass.
Ward 5? Ward 6? Ward 7 passes. Ward 9? Councilwoman Travis. All those in favor of moving the docket session say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in the docket session. Ward 1, anything to docket this evening?
Before I announce it, last week I was fortunate enough to spend some time with Governor DMT, and I whispered in his ear because last council session, Councilman Sinatra, when we've been discussing the Warwick School Department and funds, the bane of most cities and towns in this state is without an department head, why, and their unfunded mandate. So I had the opportunity, I whispered into the governor's ear that we might want to have a commission set up to look at and review the unfunded mandates given by law to do a cost-benefit analysis. And if there is no benefit to some of these, and I will guarantee you we will find some that have no benefit to the students and the faculty, that we could recommend eliminating those mandates from life. So tentatively, my tentative title is Why, Unfunded Mandates Review. And as I spoke to, what I'm looking for is the state set up a commission to review these unfunded mandates by law.
Intergovernmental. Are you looking for co-sponsors on that? I have a feeling you'll get some. Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe, Councilman Lattiser, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman McElroy. I'd like to add myself as well.
Mr. President, may we comment on that?
Okay, and just, I just don't want to get us on the wrong track. We're in the docket session. You can only docket things. We can give our background when they come up here. We need to keep on the Open Meetings Act. Anything else to docket at this time? Anything else to docket, Ward 1? No. Ward 2?
One item, an ordinance, tentative title, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick, Section 601.7, yard sales. That's the only item.
Ordinance? Public properties? Okay, public properties land use. Anything else, Councilman, to docket?
That's all.
Okay, Ward 3.
One item, dumping trash in private property dumpsters.
Okay, we believe that was already docketed last meeting.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
Anything else to docket this evening?
Nothing. Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5. Ward 6. Ward 7 passes. Ward 9. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.